And we're live. How are you guys doing? Let me know in the comments how you're feeling about this. This was a tough loss. Absolutely a tough loss. Um, Geez. I gotta say, um, tonight, Pascal Siakam was actually very good. I really liked the shot dive for the most part. I didn't love the ending, and we'll definitely get into that. But if you're expecting me to come here and be like, just focus on the ending, I'm not going to. I think it's really funny how it happens. Sometimes we do game film, and then the very next day I'll see it improve. It's a really weird thing that happens that way. And tonight I saw him take threes without hesitation. And to be honest, I mean, it was great to have OG Anunoby. That I think that made a huge difference. But starting Scotty Barnes out on Joel Embiid without help, allowing him to pick up two fouls, I think it just disrupts the game in such a weird way to start. But I think the Raptors battled hard. I really like the fact that OG Anunoby hit a bunch of threes. Some of them were short. Everything was either completely in or short, and I think that's a really good sign that he's almost all the way back. Just give it a few games, guys. I think OG Anunoby has been a really huge missing piece for this team. His shooting, you know, honestly, defenses have to respect him when he's shooting 37, 38%, but when he's shooting 32, 33%, they can sag off of him. To the specific point of, Scotty Barnes, right? Because a lot of people have been saying like Scotty Barnes had a really bad game. I'm not going to disagree with you. I think he was absolutely not great, not a good game at all. I think he turned what would have been a D plus game into a C minus game by the end. I think he worked really hard on defense. He got two of those offensive fouls. I think that was a really big thing. If he doesn't chase out, if he doesn't go over that screen with James Harden, you don't get those fouls. And quite frankly, you don't have a chance in this game. But there's a couple of things with him. Number one, really passive tonight, really indecisive. There's a couple of times where he just catches the ball at three and he just needs to take it. That's just straight up. That has to go up, or you need to pass. It's pass or shoot. And that's something that he's been so good at consistently as a Toronto Raptor. He's often, in my opinion, one of the few players that does do that. But today, it was weird. Twice saw him catch it at the 3-point line, have a decent look, pass up the look, but not pass the ball. Dribble, dribble, fade away. Dribble, dribble into the paint. And I don't like this game for Scotty Barnes at all. That was not a good game. Fred VanVleet, mixed bag, right? Not great defense. Defense was, they were hunting him. They were trying to get Scotty and OG off of Harden, just looking for Fred VanVleet. And he's no slouch on defense, but he has taken a step back. Blow by after blow by. Defender just gets a step on him way too quick. And that shot just ice cold. But fair where fair is due. I don't think he took bad shots tonight necessarily. I think they just missed. And, if this guy can't take open threes in your offense, then he shouldn't be on the floor. To the specific point of, just to extend that Scotty Barnes thing. In the previous live stream, Leo and I for Basketball Zone, shout out to Basketball Zone. Okay, the person saying Fred sucks, trade Fred, chill. Just chill, calm down with that stuff. I understand you're angry, but all caps just makes me think that you're mental. Don't do that. Okay? What I'm saying is that last game we showed a really smooth motion offense, right? Like we showed the 2019 offense and we showed how the current offense works. And at times tonight, I saw a reemergence of that old school 2019 offense. I saw the ball move. I saw the ball go into a paint touch and quickly out to a three-point shooter. I loved it. I don't know where the heck it came from. Did the Raptors build a time machine? Did Marc Gasol take over the body of Chris Boucher? Well, of course not. No. That definitely didn't happen. But something clicked tonight that hasn't been clicking for a long time, which is the ball hummed in parts until the DNA takes over, the isolation, the hero ball takes over. And I do believe that last shot from Pascal Siakam was not a good shot. I think that was a predetermined look. I don't think he's good enough a three-point shooter to be necessarily saying, okay, well, this is my shot, come hell or high water. Alvin Williams, what are you doing? Like, what are you saying? I feel like you're right there. You're calling the game. And there was a play where you said Siakam needs to Siakam grabs the ball, passes it out to Barnes. Barnes, basically throws up something that doesn't even touch rim. And the commentary there is Siakam needed to touch the ball on that play. I didn't see that happen. Where are you watching the game from, bro? Who do you think passed out to him? I'm sorry, like what the hell was that? And then, to the final play. Pascal Siakam needs to drive. Like, you're down 3. Like, it's just math, right? You're down 3, actually. He does need to take that shot. I just don't think he should be the one taking that shot. I would have liked to see, because that's predictable. That's predictable, and you're not good enough three-point shooter. If you're Steph Curry, yeah, okay. That's fine. But unless you are a great three-point shooter, I don't care if you are the man or you have it going, that's not a great shot. And that's on Nick Nurse. If Nick Nurse designed it and said, hey, Siakam, just, dribble, ISO, that's not on Siakam. I think that's on the coaching staff. Don't ride the hot hand. Don't ride the hot hand for a bad shot. Okay. I don't believe in that. The odds of Pascal Siakam hitting, he hit a few threes tonight. I get it. But the odds are still very much more in your favor if you swing that around and maybe get Fred. I know he was having a cold night, but he's still a better three-point shooter. Or OG Anunoby. So the question becomes, why was it so congested for Siakam? Well, did you happen to notice a certain Scotty Barnes in the corner just standing there, begging for the ball? The defense is not going to pass. The defense doesn't respect him. Number one, because the 2-3 times he's been passed to, he's kind of passed up that shot. So that's on him, but also on his team for consistently leaving him there, but also on his coaches for playing him there. I think there's probably 2 positions that Scotty Barnes offensively can play for you very effectively right now. One is point guard, where he has the ball, where he doesn't need to be worried about how much space he's providing for the others. Because I'll be honest with you right now, he's providing about as much space as Christian Koloko on that corner for you. Defenses are just willing to live with it because you're not going to pass it to him frequently enough for them to care about it. So you've got like 5 guys overloading, and you've got to play 4-on-5 offense every single time. It's really stupid, and it needs to stop. There needs to be a scheme around it. Now, controversial sort of, but Thaddeus Young really played well tonight. I think he really had some great chemistry with that unit. Kem Birch, really great performance from him in the few minutes that he had. Malachi Flynn, good moments. They went away from him a little bit later because they were just too small, getting killed. But if it was me coaching, and you're going to be very surprised, I probably would have rode with Thaddeus Young. I don't think I would have brought Scotty Barnes back into that game. You're sort of setting a guy up to fail when you've sat him for close to 20 minutes and then you just bring him in with 2 minutes to go. I understand why you did it, because you don't want tomorrow's headline to be Raptors win this game and Scotty Barnes sits out. I know Scotty Barnes didn't ask to be put in. I don't think he's, crazy. But to put him in with 2 minutes left, unless Thaddeus Young was completely out of gas, I don't think it was the right play. Scotty played well. I think Scotty played well from that point on. He tried hard, but the game he had been having to that point, I probably wouldn't have put him back in. So that's kind of where I stand on the game. We are going to just look at the numbers very quickly, and then we're going to take your calls. I know FA from Wake Forest is already waiting. So anyone else waiting, I'm just going to put the link in the comments there, and we can talk about this game as much as you'd like. Now, just give me 1 second. I'm just going to flash some numbers on the screen so everybody can see them. So first, just take a look at the shot chart tonight. It's hard to say, right? It's hard to say, but I could live with a few less of the mid-range shots, to be honest. I think the Raptors, and that's kind of that's a Siakam thing, right? Like Siakam lives a lot in the mid-range, and tonight he kind of had it cooking, but I liked him much more when his shot diet included more threes, to be honest with you. 1 second here, flash some more here. Now these are the team stats. What sticks out here? The Raptors, once again, 11 threes, and that's with OG Anunoby back and shooting pretty well. You can't consistently get outshot from 3 by 4-3. I was looking at a stat today. I think the Toronto Raptors are 26th or 27th in the league in 3-point differential net. So on a nightly basis, you lose this battle often enough, and it's not surprising that you're 1-6 in games decided by 3 or less points because, at the end of the day, like the Raptors just take more. They take more twos, obviously, than the other team usually, as you'll see here. The Sixers kind of took more threes. They definitely made more threes. The Raptors out rebounded them. Kudos to Chris Boucher. A little bit of a mixed bag game for him, in my opinion. But yes, the Raptors out rebounded them. Even on the turnover battle, probably there's where you kind of lost the game. With the way the Raptors went, with the Raptors, with the way they play usually, I mean, you're winning the turnover battle every single night. To come out even, I think I don't know. That doesn't sit well with me. And finally, just a quick look at the box score here. What sticks out? Honestly, a very efficient game for Pascal Siakam. I can't remember the last time. I know he's done it, but I can't remember exactly the last time he hit 3 threes. I like the fact that he took those. I like the fact that they were in rhythm. Fred VanVleet, just a nightmare game, 3 for 15. Scotty Barnes, 3 for 9, just not great. OG Anunoby, -25. I think this is a good reason to not take plus minus too seriously. He just happened to be on the court with a bunch of big runs. Joel Embiid, 28 points. Honestly, man, he's been averaging 38 points over the last 6 going into this. So holding him to 28 in 42 minutes in overtime, honestly, if this was another team, he's probably scoring 50. So I think they did a great job stopping Joel Embiid. I really liked the defense tonight for the most part. I think it was way more connected and there was way more communication going on, which I really do appreciate because there were a couple times on the back end where you saw Scotty or Thad, communicate a screen or, to somebody who was about to get picked off. And I think that's been sort of lacking where, and honestly, if you ever watch a basketball game live, you can always tell which team is having chemistry problems by how much chatter there is between the teammates. That almost always is a very good indicator of that. So right now we've got 3 people. Now, guys, these shows do tend to go on for 2-3 hours. And, I want to keep it to under 2 hours. That's my goal for today because obviously somebody's going to want to watch this tomorrow and I don't want to, overwhelm them with 4 hours. So we're going to try to keep comments to, let's say we'll try to keep, like last time we had conversations upwards of about 10, 12, 15, 20 minutes, per guest. Sometimes we're having people on. Let's try to keep conversations to about 3 to 5 minutes. All right. First up, we got a regular here, FA from Wake Forest. How are you, sir?
Hey, I am good. What's up? How's it going?
Give me 1 second. It doesn't seem that the audio is connected. Hold on. I'm going to pull you back. 1 sec. Okay. What is going on here? Hello? Okay. We're going to try that again.
Can you hear me clearly now?
Okay. Talk again.
Can you hear me clearly?
You know what? For whatever reason, I'm getting audio on my laptop.
Okay, I'll come back.
Yeah, just it's not your fault. It's definitely on me. I don't understand why it's doing that. Does everyone hear me tap my mic? Does everyone hear that? Can you just give
No,
me I just want to make sure that I'm not connected with the wrong thing. FA, are you still there?
I'm still here. Yeah.
Are you hearing this tap?
No, no.
Okay, I'm gonna leave for a second and then I'm gonna come back, guys. Okay, give me 1 second. Sorry, I'm apparently
That's okay.
not hooked up with the right mic. My bad. Okay, Effie, I'm going to leave you alone for a minute. Don't say anything crazy controversial, okay? Just let us know how you felt about the game, and I'm just going to remove myself and come back.
You want to leave me on the recording by myself? How you all doing, guys? I think today they played hard, but the at overtime the ball wasn't really moving that much. So when Pascal is playing well, they tends to focus on the mid range, and that kind of takes folks out of the game. But kudos to Pascal. I think they lost the game today because Scotty did not really have a good game, and Fred Van Vliet missed a lot of wide open trees.
Hello,
You're
can
back.
you hear me?
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, great. Hmm.
Okay, can you put on your hold on one sec. Okay, now speak.
Hello, can you hear me?
Success. I'm so sorry about that,
Great.
guys. Technical
No,
issue.
no,
My audio
that's
interface
it.
got disconnected and everything was going through my laptop. Thanks for putting up with that. Okay, so I didn't hear a lot of what you said, but and you don't need to repeat yourself, but give me something fresh to react to.
Uh, I think they played really, really hard today. Scotty Barnes came in really, really flat today, like what you said, but I still believe that even though Pascal had it going with the mid range, I think Scotty should have the ball more in the middle because Pascal is a better shooter than Scotty at this time. So Pascal had a
Yeah,
better mid range, and they need to learn how to play the two-man game between Pascal and Scotty Barnes. I don't know why Nick Nurse has not figured that out because if they
mm,
can do that, look at how Jason Tatum and then Jalen Brown does it, right? Put all of them in space out in the middle, take turns and everything. They can really overwhelm the defense. But
right.
sometimes Scotty forgets that I think sometimes he needs to drive harder, like have that Mamba mentality. Sometimes he just goes through the game. Then you can see at the last 2 minutes and overtime, right? When Scotty really wants to play defense, he does really well. He has his base wide, and James Harden couldn't go through him. I always call for the switch, right? To have
Yeah,
Fred VanVleet all the time. So
yeah,
with Scott is a young player, right? He needs that consistency, like that A game
yeah.
every single time.
There's a shout out to Noble Venom, I believe, who was at the last game, and he said, and now I'm going to get accused for making excuses for Scotty. I don't want to make excuses for anybody, but Noble Venom said that he was at the game last game, and he said that throughout the game, the entire game, Scotty was holding his knee. That he seemed really hurt, and I took the under on Scotty 15 points tonight, just thinking that he might just come out flat. You'll notice in the 26 game back-to-back 26-point games, I noted, I'm like, hey, you know what's really common about these games? He hasn't come up
Hmm.
limping once. And in the last game, you'll notice, do you remember? He just came up
Hmm.
wincing and he held his knee for a long time. Apparently, he was on the bench the entire time getting treatment on his knee and stuff. So, you know what? Like when your body's not right, you're not right. We saw Fred in the playoffs against Philly. His back was, it does, was it his back or his hip? I can't remember.
Is
And
he
we
fun?
also saw Scotty, like when he came back from that ankle injury against Philadelphia in the playoffs, he wasn't himself in those last two games. He tried, he tried his best and he helped the team win. But in the last three games, he couldn't shoot. His touch
Hmm.
almost evaporated at the basket. His shooting percentage tanked. In the first game, he was great. So I think, there are certain players that play okay when they're a little bit nicked up, right? I don't think Scotty's one of those players. Every time I've known him to have a thumb issue or a knee problem, or even when, like, you know what I mean? Like every time his performance tanks. So I don't know if it's just him getting comfortable with his body or him overthinking, like he doesn't want to get re-injured, but I
Yeah,
really do feel like the way he
I
was
think it's
moving didn't look like he
different.
was moving in the previous games.
I think what happened was I think Nick Nurse shouldn't have put Scotty on Joel Embiid. The two early fouls, right, took him
Yeah,
out of the game. Like my son plays basketball, right, and I've gone to his games where once he has like early fouls, like the
yeah,
whole game is like messed up. It's like all in his head, right? You're
yeah,
playing not to make mistakes. You're playing not to have more fouls, right?
right.
I was surprised that they didn't put Cambridge at the starting lineup to guard Embiid because Embiid is huge. It's massive. So.
Yeah, I'm
But
not I'm not going to deny that for sure, man. Thanks a lot, FA. Do you have any final takeaways?
Fred VanVleet, man, those wide open trees. Like if he's not making the trees, then put somebody in there. That's my last take.
Yeah, maybe a little bit more Malachi. Thanks a lot, FA. Next up we have Jonathan. Hey Jonathan, how are you?
Not too bad yourself.
I'm good. Just a reminder to anyone, if you want to call in, the link is in the description, and hopefully no more technical issues for going forward. And I'll just put it in the comments right here. Jonathan, what'd you think of the game?
I mean, it wasn't too bad of a game, especially after last night. But I think there were some good points. Our role players played pretty well. I was really low on Malachi coming into the season, but I thought he was pretty good tonight. Even saw Boucher, who was driving towards Embiid, and he made the pass to Thad just as I was yelling no. So, and Thad obviously was good. So,
yeah. I think Boucher is, such a frustrating player at times, right? Because he does so many good things for you. I mean, the activity level, the ability to run the floor and just put so much pressure on other bigs in transition, especially like some bigs who are sometimes late to get back, like Joel Embiid. But then on the same side, like his basketball IQ, sometimes it drives me insane. Like there was a play where OG had a very clear isolation and he was kind of backing his man down, and Boucher just flashes into the paint and brings his man with him, and now OG's double teamed. And it's just stuff like that. It's really weird to watch. I think this team really misses the guys who are out, specifically because I was thinking about it. I'm like, how much do I really want Chris Boucher playing on a normal game? Like 10 minutes. That's kind of what I want from him. I want 10 minutes of straight energy. And in those 10 minutes, he's going to commit like a couple of fouls. He's going to maybe attempt a bad three at some point, but he's going to be balls out for those 10 minutes. And he's going to know that he's going to have 10 minutes to make an impact. And if you've looked at Chris Boucher's analytics, like usually he's like one of the team leaders in PER because he just goes balls out for that time. But when you start playing this guy 20 to 25 minutes, I think there are a lot of players like this. Like you get into trouble. Just my opinion.
Yeah, well, seeing just the look of Montrezl Harrell was making me miss Precious tonight. So hopefully he's back soon. Otto as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I won't take too much more time. But I just want to let you know, I haven't felt like this much of a sponge towards basketball in years. So tonight was the first time I ever took notes during the game, and really trying to dig into the game deeper. So thank you for that.
Can you share your notes?
Well, yeah, I had my.
Would you mind?
Yeah,
I'm very curious.
No problem. I thought Thad had a few key rebounds. First half. I wrote Malachi was, I was more positive on him. The Boucher things. I thought we had way too many open threes, but I think that's a theme. I did like so often you see guys, when ref makes a bad call, just angry. But when there's a bad call, I think they called a foul on Thad on Embiid, and he was talking to the ref, and they panned to it, and ref was kind of smiling, and it's like that's a good veteran right there, right? And really that was the lot of it for now. But first go.
That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, some of us have at times like gone back to like maybe a game, and we'll go and try to track which player defended which player was breaking down which player. It's really, I mean, it's like a puzzle. And I've always found that people who are naturally drawn to puzzles, I don't know if you are, really like that. So I'm really happy to hear that you're doing that. That's super cool. Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it, Jonathan.
No problem. All right, thank you.
Cheers, man.
Okay,
bye. Okay, next up we have Kareem. Kareem, how you doing?
What's going on, bro?
I'm good. How are you? What'd you think of the game?
I don't even know where to start. I'm just trying to figure out what are the answers to this huge debacle right now.
What's the debacle?
A spiraling down.
I mean,
that's like because I'm tired of like just trying to figure out. I'm trying to pick like the positives right now, and I just like it's about
Pascal Siakam was a positive. I think OG Anunoby coming back and looking like he might have regained his shooting touch. That's been missing for us, man. Like he's been shooting terrible from three. Like I can't tell you how many games we've lost by 1, 2, or 3 points, and it's just like he took 7 threes and made 1 or 2. And it's not even just the shots that he's making, it's the fact that the defense isn't really respecting him like they used to. Because I mean, that's the thing about the 20 game mark. Teams figure you out. Like, so if there's something that's changed about your roster, like there's a young player who's really accelerated like a particular skill set, by the 10 to 20 game mark, teams usually figure that out, and then they scheme to stop it. And right now, what do the Raptors not have right now? Number one, they don't have shooters. Number two, they don't have anyone who can consistently break down and get into the paint. They don't have any Ja Morants, right? They don't have a prime Derrick Rose. They don't have someone who can bust the zone. So you're seeing teams go increasingly into zone coverage against this team. And I think that the Raptors are paying for it. One, because they don't move the ball fast enough, right? Have a guy like Thad Young who can actually do a skip pass properly, knows exactly how to relocate, knows exactly when to set a screen, when to get out of the way. Juancho is the same way. I think these two guys are really smart. But I do think, to some extent, the answer is actually on your bench. And that's Precious Achiuwa and Otto Porter Jr. Last post game, I was going nuts on this. Like, this team was designed to fail. And then I started looking at my preseason rankings. And I was like, man, I was really high on this team. Why was I so high on this team? And I looked at the players that I ranked out on this team, 20-1, right? So 20, 19, and 18 in training camp, they got waived. So I got that right. But then I looked last game and I'm like, man, the guys I ranked 7, 6, 5, was it right? So it was hold on. 7 was Gary Trent, 6 was Precious Achiuwa, 5 was Otto Porter, and 3 was OG Anunoby. All those guys were missing. So in my opinion, I think you can sustain not having Siakam or VanVleet. I feel like you can get those points from Malachi or Gary Trent or Scotty Barnes. You can do by committee. But when you lose the rebounding of Precious Achiuwa, he is twice the rebound. He's in the 96th percentile as a rebounder, and he's one of the best paint protectors on this team. Not a huge block number, but the deterrence at the rim, that teams just shoot worse. The Raptors, right now, I don't know if you guys caught my community post, at 63.9%, the Raptors are the worst team 8 feet and in on defense in the last 25 years. 25 years. It's crazy. And they give up corner threes at a reckless rate, 29th in the league in that. So you're giving up the 2 most efficient shots in the world. No one, how is this team won a single game is my question.
So, question, do you think like the team almost kind of, I feel like they're not playing, it feels like they're checking out a Nick Nurse, to be honest. Sometimes I feel like that because like the offense is just so stagnant and they're just sitting and like there's no backdoor cuts, nobody's moving around, it's just all ISO ball. And like even yesterday when Golden State, I think they played like a zone, a 2-2-1, and like they just didn't know what to do. They were doing that little.
They got clowned hard. They got clowned hard for that on Twitter, right? Scotty and Malachi playing hot potato.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's a culture thing. Like, I feel like you put Malachi or Scotty or OG on like a different team with different trendsetters, different offensive system. I think those guys can fit in. But this system seems to be really predicated on like a lot of pounding the ball. And now you have guys who maybe I don't accuse of usually pounding the ball. They're pounding the ball too. And it's just like, it's an infection. It's like, it's contagious, and it just starts. Passing is contagious. I always say passing is contagious. Do you play pickup ball?
No, I'm a football guy, to be honest.
Oh, you're a football guy. So when you play pickup ball, like I used to play pickup ball all the time, and we used to go my turn, your turn. Like, that's just the way pickup ball works. It's like you're trying to refine your one-on-one skills and whatever. And then there was this old Asian dude who used to come, to the park, and he just believed in passing. You just pass it to him in the post. He's like 50 years old. He has his knee brace, and we used to call him old school. And he would just be like passing left and right. And then within like 3-4 possessions, suddenly you're passing more too. You're like, Jesus, like how did that happen? Like I'm passing the ball now. It's infectious, because it builds trust. And I always think like defense, offense, like, it's smoother when you trust. You run, you cut. But I think like in the beginning of the year, saw a lot of guys who would flash into the paint. They wouldn't get the ball. I'll give you an example. Like right at the beginning of the game, Juancho wide open in the corner. That's the reason he's starting. He's a shooter. Fred VanVleet dribbling head down, doesn't see him. And you see Juancho's hands go up like, are you crazy? Because he launched a contested shot, right? So it's like there is. Like, these players are professionals. They've played with other professionals their whole lives. They know what the pass you should have made. You missed them 2-3 times. They're not running anymore. They're not leaking in transition. I saw a play today where Scotty like basically almost walked up the court, and it was in transition. I was like, when have I ever seen that? That's not cool. I don't like that he's doing it, but I'm trying to empathize with the idea that he's not the only one doing it. There are a lot of guys doing that right now. There's a lot of body language that's telling me that there's a lot of frustration in this locker room. And, you know, if you've been inside a professional locker room, there's a lot of finger pointing going on. There's a lot of, it's your fault. No, it's Christian Coloco starting. It's his fault. We're starting a rookie. Why don't we trade for somebody? And I mean, that happens, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know. But to me, this reflects on leadership. Whoever your leader is, whatever you consider leadership. If your leadership is Nick Nurse, then yes, it reflects very poorly on him. If your leadership is Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, and Thaddeus Young, I think that reflects on them, because attitude to me always reflects leadership.
Yeah.
Do you find that to be true in football?
Of course, definitely. But once that you brought up the whole passing thing, now I'm just going to flip it back over to the defense now, because the Raptors are known for switching a lot. Mm-hmm. Right, we have that 6'9" vision. We could guard everybody basically.
Yep.
That's Nick Nurse's philosophy.
Yep.
Now, do you feel that we might be switching too much at times, to the point where the other team just has to keep on passing because it's contagious, and then they get the open shooter all the time? They get that's what tires us out, I believe, on defense, is so much switching.
No, that's fair. You're trying to scheme against, you know, breakdowns, and you're trying to switch everything because you're trying to cut out the advantage for the offense. However, switching is only effective when you have a team full of really good defenders. 1, 2, you don't have any mismatches that they can hunt, which is what the Raptors are trying to do, but I don't think they realize that there are mismatches that teams can hunt. I don't think Chris Boucher can necessarily stay in front of a shifty guard. I don't think Fred VanVleet can guard Joel Embiid in the post. There's always going to be a matchup that they can eventually get to. But then also communication. You know, I used to I saw like about 5 or 6 Raptor games live after Gasol was traded here. He was so loud, man, in his Spanish accent, just yelling at, you know, Pascal, yelling at Kawhi. He was calling out everything. He was just calling out like left, you know, it's coming left. And when the crowd was a little bit quiet, you could hear him like 20 rows back. It was amazing. That is what you need from your defensive. I mean, it's like, you know, to put in a football analogy, it's like he's your quarterback on defense, right? He sees everything. He has the bird's eye view. And it's like, the problem is that I think some of your better communicators on defense, which would be Fred, OG, Scotty, I think those guys are kind of like in the front.
Yeah.
They're like your receivers. They can't communicate from there because they can't see the floor. So I think one of the biggest shifts that I would make if I was the coach is Siakam is a hangback big, kind of, you know, he's contesting at the rim. The Raptors are giving up a historic percentage at the rim. If I was Nick Nurse, I would change that. I saw a little bit of it tonight. I saw Scotty Barnes hanging back a little bit, and I found that hilarious because the first time I've really seen it, I could be wrong. I haven't investigated it, but it's one of the first times I've seen it, and I just made a post about it yesterday. So I'm like, is there a coach that's following this? Because I hope there is, you know, because this is crazy to see that. But that's exactly how it should be, because Scotty's got mobility issues. He's got issues right now navigating screens. He was a little bit better today, but usually he gets burned on those. He finds himself too wide, too upright. You need to be low. You need to be low to do that. And so I just think that it would be a good idea to have someone a little bit quicker, like laterally a little quicker and a little healthier, like Pascal Siakam up front, but also a guy who I don't believe communicates that well. The only thing I hear him communicating is when he grabs a rebound, he says mine. And when he goes for a shot, he says and one. Those are the only things I genuinely hear from Pascal.
Yeah, see these and I just like that 2019 vision that we used to have with like that 2 center type thing, and especially with like Ibaka and obviously Gasol quarterback in the defense. That was pretty awesome there. So.
I mean, my God, you had 2 guys who were almost perennial defensive player of the year candidates in their prime, anchoring your defense, and you had a defensive player of the year in Kawhi, defensive player of the year, you know, anchoring sort of the front, and you had like this an embarrassment of riches. Like it's almost, you know, people always think about that as Kawhi and scraps, but it's so stupid to think of it that way, because it's really an embarrassment of riches. That team was so well assembled. And you know what? I mean, you know, to those of you sort of losing faith and being like, oh my God, 6 straight, like when will this losing stop? I guess that's the point of this, you know, pod, is to try to answer that, hopefully, you know, against the Knicks. That would be great. But I think you need to just trust that if it goes wrong, whether it goes right or wrong, we're in good hands. We're in good hands, you know? Anyways,
this is rock bottom. So
it could be. I mean, it could be. I mean,
I think, but where there's a lot to like to go forward with.
You know what
Like
would be really
I
wrong
look at our
with him?
roster. I
Mhm.
look at our roster from like top to bottom. I'm like, I don't understand how we are not like I like it looks like we're top 10 team easily. We're
In the
just
league.
we're in the league. We're just not playing like it. So
You
we'll
know,
get there.
per Crafted's defensive plus minus model, Otto Porter this year has been a 96th percentile defender in 8 games. He has consistently been in the 85 to 90 range for most of his career. He's one of the best defenders in the NBA. That's what you're missing. You're
Yeah.
missing 2 really important players. I mean, Otto is really good. I mean, the eye test confirms it. Every time he was on the court, there was like some sort of defensive disruption. He just always knew where to be. You know, the defensive rebounding, the box outs, the in the lanes, the passing. He's just, and the shooting. My God, the shooting, right? He's so underrated, so underrated. But, you know, you got him cheap because he's often injured, and now people are criticizing him for being injured. You know, can't control breaking a toe. You know, that's shit happens. But if he comes back and Precious, you know, honestly, you know, people are sour on Precious right now because he's not shooting well. But everything else, apart from shooting and passing, he has been like one of your top 5 players. So you really are missing like 2 really important pieces. And yeah, so I mean, hopefully when those guys come back, OG coming back, that's a big step in the right direction. I think if you have Precious tonight instead of Boucher out there, I think you probably win this game. Personal opinion. Yeah. Anyways, Kareem, thank you so much. Really nice chatting with you. See you, man. Cheers. SGE, I know that you're waiting there, and I gotta say, I don't think you have your mic or something on, so I can't really. Is that?
Hello?
Oh,
Hello?
okay, cool. Hey, man, how are you? SGE.
Yeah. I just had it muted while I was waiting.
Cool.
So, man, I've been looking at, you know, everyone's been watching. I'm not gonna say anything that's a big revelation right now, you know, but one thing that I'm noticing is that there's two like offenses that are trying to happen at the same time with Scotty and Fred. And I think I want to see the Scotty one more. And I know it's a little abstract what I'm saying, but Fred seems to slow down the ball, take his time, readjust the offense, Helio around me, I'm going to be the center of it. And then Scotty has to acquiesce to that. And he's in his infancy stage of his NBA career. And I want his imagination to be a little bit more wild. And he wants to run and he wants to play fast. But I just don't think – I think having a point guard like Fred doesn't enable Scotty in the right way.
You know, like, I mean, I don't think it's an accident that we saw Scotty sort of unleashed in the Atlanta and San Antonio games that I find myself reminiscing about and, you know, remembering quite often. It just felt like that's how he wants to play, and that's the way he was built to play. Like, look, I mean, I can't fault a person. Like Scotty Barnes in Florida State was a 27% 3-point shooter. The very idea that he's had a game already in his NBA career where he's hit 5 threes and he's shooting 31 to 32% from 3, I think that's remarkable progress, because if you look at, you know, some of the other players in his class, like Cade, Franz, etc., they're also struggling. Like, they're struggling, but they came in as far more developed shooters. It will take time. And until he can become a 35 to 36% 3-point shooter, defenses are not going to respect him. And on high volume, because volume is important here. They need to know that you're willing to gun it and that your team is willing to pass to you. I just feel like, not to repeat myself, but I feel like the Raptors are playing 4-on-5 with him. We used to do this with far less talented players like Michael Curry. You know, Michael Curry was a player that we often played 4-on-5 with, and it was nauseating to watch it, right? I believe that was under Kevin O'Neill. Shout outs in the comments if you remember Michael Curry. I'm just bringing you back to the most depressing period in Raptor history.
You're going before my time. My time.
Well, I mean, that was shit. But I mean, like, look, like Bruce Bowen is a great example of a guy. He had to develop that 3. He was an incredible defender, cheap and dirty as hell, but good defender. And he had to develop that 3. Kawhi Leonard, when he came into the league, he came in as a guy with sort of shaky jump shot, figured it out really quickly. He was also further ahead than Scotty, and I believe a year older or a year or two older than Scotty when he came into the league. But nevertheless, you know, these guys have to, if you're going to ask someone to function as a corner spacer, they have to be able to A, make shots, B, take shots. Otherwise, it doesn't work. There are too many times that I've looked over the film for this team and seen Scotty Barnes with not a defender within 15 feet of him. Like, you are playing 4-on-5. So, like, either put the ball in his hands and allow him to go downhill and allow him to create for others, or, put him in the dunker spot for now, like Ben Simmons or something like that. Or, just tell him, if you're not going to take those threes, we're going to bench you. And tell his teammates, if you don't pass to him when he's got 20, when he's open by 20 feet, then we're going to bench you too. Because honestly, right now, there are guys on this team like Chris Boucher who are shooting considerably worse than Scotty Barnes, who have no problem taking threes. For much of this season, Fred VanVleet has not shot much better than Scotty Barnes. Before his hot streak, he wasn't shooting much better than Scotty Barnes. Pascal Siakam's not shooting much better than Scotty Barnes. Like, we're talking a difference of 0.1%, like 0.7%, 2%. Like, it's not like Malachi Flynn versus, Fred VanVleet, where we're talking like a 16% gap. So Scotty, it's on Scotty. He has to take those shots. He can't take it, look, pass it up. I mentioned it the previous stream. When you do that, you screw up your entire offense. You cannot do that. Like, you're screwing over your team because your offense generated a good shot and you're passing it up to do what? Like, dribble, and fade away? No, that is a terrible idea.
I agree with you. We agree in like 90%. Like, we agree.
Where's the 10% we don't agree?
I think we just, because, man, I think how much slack are we going to give Fred? How much rope are we going to give this guy before I'm like, all right, let the kid go. Let Scotty go. I can't watch you shoot a comparable percent to Scotty Barnes and then not think, all right, let me see what Scotty got. Because I want Fred to go back to that role that he played with DeMar DeRozan, kind of. I know that's kind of nuts, but kind of like
to the bench.
No, let him come off the bench, let him run and gun, because Fred's dangerous in that role.
Look, man, it's all politics, right? If it wasn't for politics right now, if it wasn't for, pecking order, perceived superstardom, all NBA, if it wasn't for all the individualist shit that gets into the way of team basketball, number one, I don't think there's any way that Fred VanVleet is even on the court in the second half. With the way that he was playing, honestly, he was not giving you that much on defense. I swear to God, I'm not hating. I'm telling you, he wasn't that great on defense.
No, I agree.
And miss me with that stuff about like, oh my God, you're hating on Fred. No, I'm not. He wasn't that great on defense tonight. There wasn't a great matchup. The Sixers have a lot of length across the board, even without Tyrese Maxey, guys. They're playing without Tyrese Maxey. Yes, you're playing without Otto and Precious, but they're playing without a hell of a player who gives you a lot of trouble in Tyrese Maxey, and another guy who can shoot lights out, right? A lot of those corner threes that were being taken by PJ Tucker or, by Matisse Thybulle or whatever. And honestly, I'm surprised not to go off topic, but I'm very surprised that when Pascal Siakam started cooking, that they didn't put Matisse Thybulle on him. Like, Doc Rivers, such an overrated coach. Man, like, if I had Matisse Thybulle on my team, like, especially now that he can sort of shoot a little bit, like, I would put him on Siakam and put Tucker on the bench. But that's just me.
I think Tucker's such an overrated defender too.
I don't necessarily think he's.
No, oh my God.
I mean, I get
small,
it. Yeah.
Though. The reason why you put KD on, I was watching KD on Siakam, and I'm like, man, length really bothers Siakam.
Yeah, and Matisse Thybulle has got like a 7'2" wingspan. I think if Matisse Thybulle is on Siakam, I think 10 of those points are cut out personally. But that's on Doc Rivers. Whatever. I've been critical of this guy for 20 years now, and he won a championship in that meanwhile. So what the hell do I know? But to your point about specifically like Scotty Ball versus Fred Ball, I think if they keep losing games, you'll probably be sellers at the trade deadline. They're not just going to keep and the previous caller said this feels like rock bottom. It's about as bad as it can get. I'll tell you what can get worse, right? If you lose 5 or 6 more games and they don't quit on this, and they don't quit on this, and then they keep pushing it, and then somehow you turn it around and you end up like 8th. Like, that to me would be about as bad as, or 9th, like at least 8th, you get into the playoffs. But if you get into a play-in situation, you lose. I kind of liked what I saw from Siakam tonight. I think Fred okay, here's the thing. I've seen the worst version of what Fred did tonight, and it's worse than this. So I'm just going to say that this is slight progress over where he's been before, if that's fair. Because at least he was willing to give it up to Siakam at the end when Siakam had it going. He's willing to pass off to Barnes to initiate a little bit. He's willing to pass to OG, right? He didn't just keep hunting it. Yeah, he took a lot of bad shots. He went 3 for 15. Probably should have been benched. Now to the point earlier about politics and what I feel like are pecking order and all that ego, bravado shit. honestly, ego bravado aside, Scotty probably shouldn't come back in the game. Ego brought with the game that he was having. Honestly, can we be fair? Like, I don't think he had a great game today, right?
No, I don't think he had a great game today.
And whatever the reason is, he's not involved in the offense. He's injured. He's hurt. Whatever. It doesn't really matter. The point is, he doesn't have it tonight. Sit him down. Give him a shot the next game. I'm not saying bench him for the season. I'm saying there has to be some sort of accountability. You can't just come back into the game. And also, I think you're screwing this guy over. Also, there's a much greater risk of injury. I talked to a doctor once who told me that there's like when you sit for a while and you just start sitting and your body cools down, then coming out, there's much greater risk for injury. Someone can correct me in the comments if there's a doctor out there who can correct me on that. But and then honestly, if it wasn't for politics, Pascal Siakam doesn't take that last shot. You hunt probably for swing to Malachi or OG. Like those are the two guys that I would trust with that last shot if it's a three. And maybe Nick Nurse doesn't feel comfortable going up to his star player saying, hey, I know my old star player Kawhi Leonard would take this shot, but you're not Kawhi Leonard. And so Malachi's going to get this shot and it's going to throw the defense off because they're expecting us to go to you because we go to you every time. It's so predictable. It's either going to be Fred or Pascal. And that's why I was so encouraged in the Brooklyn series, in the Brooklyn game, because they went to Scotty. And that was right. You were riding the hot hand and for the right shot. But man, if you had gone to Scotty Barnes for a three against Brooklyn, I would have snapped because that would be the wrong shot. So I think sometimes, people get almost superstitious about going away from the hot hand. But sometimes the hot hand there's a shot that the hot hand.
No, I don't think hot hand exists on the Toronto Raptors. That's the problem. The theory of hot hand is just completely not there. Nick Nurse coaches in a way where there is a pecking order, obviously. But the problem with doing that every night is people can't emotionally get into their hooping bag.
Right.
You can't dive into oh, today's my night. I think Gary gets that slack a little bit sometimes, but that's about it. Nobody's allowed to get hot in this team. Ball goes back to Fred or ball goes back to Siakam. My last question for you before I check out. I know we're keeping it short tonight. Is Fred opting into his contract?
I don't think so. His trend line is going down. Anyways, SG, thank you so much, man. Right. I appreciate it. Next up, we got Samuel. Samuel, how are you?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Hey, Rob. I apologize. I only call in because I think you did. Was it Leo, your partner?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great video. It answers all my question. I'm calling in because I hear this fan base and other YouTuber who are putting material out there, and I'm only speaking to those guys really because I think you already kind of alluded to everything you're building upon, and obviously you got to pump content, but I think this is blessing in disguise. And I said to you in my message, right? I'm sorry, it's the overblown one, but this is great. I think you also said it. The worst place you can be is in the play-in, right? This is perfect. The only question that you guys were talking about as well, if Scotty is your first or second guy in the future for the championship team, right? Why are you continuously playing him? That's a question for Masai.
Continuously playing him?
Yeah.
As in through injury?
Yeah, through injury. Exactly. That's the question. Maybe as fans have, maybe they know more. We don't know, or who knows what's going on. As your last video pointed out in the 2019 team versus the current team. I mean, you talked about it. And I'm not sure if this fan base gets it. I know your followers get it, but this is not as good as in terms of talent. So what the heck are we doing in this middle ground forever? We can continuously talk about this until our face is blue. I'm not going to say who it is, but another prominent YouTuber or whatever, he's like, oh, get Siakam some help. Are you out of your damn mind? Get Siakam some help for what? He can't take us to the championship level. There's no way as the main guy, or Fred. So why are we continuously talking about these guys where they're not going to be part of our future? Hopefully not, because if they are, then it's like me saying to you on the message, like, well, these guys are really just want to bamboozle fans and want to sell some first or second round tickets, and we're going to be like, and you said it, the Mike James team. I was old enough, the Chris Bosh era.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think in all fairness, I don't remember like DeMar DeRozan, right? For instance, I think Pascal Siakam today is considerably better player than DeMar DeRozan was when he was in Toronto. I really do believe that. Fred VanVleet, obviously, I think is worse than Kyle Lowry. So split the difference. Is this kind of similar to that core? Sure. But when you had that core, they were like 24, 25, 26. You know, at least DeMar was 26. So the younger of the two. And honestly, if Siakam was flashing this at 24, 25, I know he picked up basketball a little bit late, I might feel pretty different about this. I really do. I think those 3 years make a really big difference to me because I look at everything through timelines. And I agree with you. I don't, I think if one of these two guys is going to be your closer in close games, it's going to be, someone setting your offense or stabilizing your offense. Even defensively, I don't think either one of them have been good. I think, to those of you out there who insist that Siakam's just this really awesome defender, yeah, he's really versatile. But if you look at his deflection rates, if you look at just his deterrence at the rim, the percentage teams shoot at the rim against him, it's actually not his offense that I'm concerned about as much right now. It's his defense.
Yes.
So, again, Siakam's a hell of a player, top 15, 16 type of player. I think I would move off of him, and I've been pretty clear on that, obviously. But in order to move off someone, you need to sell them. You need to sell them to other teams. You need to sell them. You need to, hold an audition for them, right? Because you're not taking the low ball offer back. And I think that if you hold on to him too long, then he's expiring next summer. And then now you are in a completely shit situation, in my opinion, where he could potentially walk for nothing. If you don't agree to something, right? If you become sour or whatever, because some people have pointed that out. They're like, oh my God, the Raptors have to sell Siakam on their vision for surrounding him for help. And I got into it in the last pod, and I'm sure you said you heard it, that if you actually believe in Siakam right now, there's no way you're starting Christian Koloko most of these games. No. There's no way you're holding on to all those picks. Because let me put it for you this way. At his, when he was here, when Kawhi was here, I would say he was like a top 6 to 7 player in the NBA. You can debate all you want whether he was 1 or he was 7, but he was in that conversation that Jason Tatum, Luka Doncic, those guys are in right now, right? If that Kawhi Leonard was on this team right now, like 26 years old, sorry, 20, was he 26, 27? He was 27 years old, I believe. So if 26, 27-year-old Kawhi Leonard was on this team in place of current, 28-year-old Pascal Siakam, do you make a completely impulsive win now trade?
Correct.
Trade away maybe Scotty Barnes? Do you trade away future assets? Do you trade away, I think the thinking completely changes.
No, I think you get it. Your partner gets it. I call it because I see that the fan base and some of your fellow influencer are continually pushing the narrative. This is like great. I think management has to pump this out to keep the engagement on. But you're 100% right. Why would they not get him help? Now, if they really are foolish enough to get him help, I heard getting Jakob Poeltl, but how's that going to help us take the next step?
Well, I mean, to answer your question, I just mentioned it. We were one of the worst teams in the league at defending the paint, and Jakob Poeltl is one of the best players in the world in defending the paint. So actually, he shores up your biggest weakness as a team. The only other thing you're really weak at is having a top 5 guy, which is a thing that 20 teams or 15 teams are weak at. So I think look, what the Raptors have assembled here, I think it's a top 5 team in the East. I really do believe that. If healthy, if you play the season out, if you don't tank, whatever, I think this team makes the playoffs one way or another. I really
Rob,
think
do you think we're building towards? I think you said it. Masai keeps mentioning it. I hope it's not lip service, right? You want to build for a championship team. Do you think this is is going that, or is it trending that way? Like, do you think Pascal Siakam is the guy, a la Kawhi Leonard, or is he like DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry? People seems to forget Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan flamed out against the Wizards. I was there. They got swept pretty badly, and this is with Nick Nurse as the assistant coach. Don't forget that. I know Dwayne Casey's at the helm, right? It's also that hero ball. Your turn, my turn, Kyle, DeMar, and then everybody else gets. Now I know it's a different regime with Nick Nurse, but it seems like you mentioned it. We're going back to that ISO ball.
Yeah, I mean, look, I feel like we're spinning in circles here. What to sort of I don't mean to cut you off, Samuel. Sorry,
no,
I do want to get to the next caller, but to just kind of close. I do believe that there are different ways to do this. And yeah, there's the Boston Celtics 2008 way, where you parse out pieces, you trade away some future assets, you swap one player for another player, and you put together this dynamic big three, and you win
Yeah.
the championship the next year. But there's the Detroit Pistons way of doing it too, right? The Detroit Pistons 04, right? How many years had that core basically been plugging away at it until, and the Raptors are the same story. The Raptors core of, Kyle, OG, there was playoff failures. You need those. You need those playoff failures. You need that experience. I hate to say it, but it's true. I know that it seems like a kooky concept to most people, but there's a different intensity in the playoffs, and it usually stuns a lot of young players. If you could get Christian Coloco 6 games in the playoffs this year, for his development long term, and especially for when he sees those situations 2 years down the line, those 6 reps are invaluable, not to mention the money and whatever. And once you get to the playoffs, anything could happen, right? I mean, God, if you bet on sports, like you have to literally scroll through 150 injuries every single day to figure out who's playing, who's not playing. It's ridiculous. So, injuries happen all the time. I think injuries have been very prevalent this year, incredibly, more and more injuries this year. So you don't know if you get into a, 8 seed, 7 seed situation. I'm not advocating for doing that. I definitely do not want to do that. I'm just playing devil's advocate here. And I'm just telling you that there are more ways to do this. And look, at the end of the day, I do believe that if Scotty Barnes was not the guy that they're building around, that he would have been traded this offseason for Kevin Durant. I really do believe that.
So I'll leave this last thought, and maybe there's more content coming this way. I agree with you. We're going back, because I know the question is, I think you brought it up. If these guys are not willing to pass it on, like they got it from their predecessor, Kyle Lowry.
Larry said it. Yeah, Marc Gasol and Kyle Lowry were.
So that means either you're gonna live with the younger core. Hopefully they turn out to be something, and these guys got to go. And I guess for you, as in terms of, I'm not sure if we're going to see these content, who's in the draft or who's in the upcoming future do you see us building with Scotty and maybe the younger, like Christian Coloco? Like, who
easy,
can we
man.
put
Christian Coloco, OG, Precious, all these guys are under 25. You could include Gary Trent in that if you need a gunner off the bench. Malachi's showing some potential. Jeff Doughton's 25.
In the draft? Is there somebody in the draft that maybe you haven't gotten there, but you eventually, like, who's in the draft maybe in the top
Scoot
10?
Henderson. Scoot Henderson solves like every problem that you have at point right now. Him and Scotty would be a pretty interesting backcourt. I think they'd play off each other really well. I think Victor Wembanyama solves all the other problems you have, which is rim deterrence and shooting threes. So honestly, if you end up top 2 in this draft, you can't go wrong. Anyways, Samuel, thanks so much, man. Cheers. Okay, next up, we have a regular caller, Chaz. And then after that, we have Blackhawk 2K. I'm going to just post the link here. I think we have time for 3 more calls. Okay, Chaz, how are you doing?
Good, man. How are you?
Did you switch to a Blue Jays hat?
I did.
You gave up on the Raptors hat.
I was not going to watch the game tonight. I did not watch. So I was going to get your synopsis of the game before I checked the tape.
If you want my synopsis of the tape,
it was close. It was close.
You can go to the
overtime. Come on, man. Tell me.
You can go to the first 10 minutes of this game. I do break it down there. I don't want to repeat myself for the 250 people watching, but if you have a specific question about the game, I can definitely answer that.
No, but you know what? I think you should be more forthcoming with your analysis of the game as it played out. Like, tell me about that. What did you think?
But I that's what I'm saying. In the first 10 minutes of this video, I've already gone through that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay,
in depth.
I missed the video. Sorry.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'll get it out of the way then. And yeah, no problem. Okay, we're good.
Do you have a question though? A specific question other than?
I don't. I just wanted to hear what you thought of the game because, and I missed the video part because I just chimed in. I had some family things going on, and I wanted to check it out.
Like when we get off, you can actually just scroll it back.
I will. Okay, I'll scroll it back.
All right. Yeah. Cheers, man.
All right. Cheers, man.
Have a good one. Okay. Next up, we got Blackhawk 2K. How you doing, man?
Hey, pretty good. How you doing too, man?
I'm good.
Good. To me, this game was better defense, not the best. We still got a ways to go, but I was very much happier of the defense, definitely in comparison to yesterday. So was there? OG was rusty a bit, in the beginning, but that's to be expected. So I'm looking forward to him getting vamped up over the next couple of days, even though they say we have a tougher schedule. I think if we can get the right guys in place and getting them under the reps, we can see a better effort from the team.
I agree.
Right.
And I think OG shooting well and shooting confidently and that wrist, healing up, I think that opens up a lot of space. And then, it improves your spacing because right now you just, if OG's a non-shooter right now, like, my God.
I would say the shooting was a bonus today because I wasn't even expecting that today, being that he was coming back. So a pleasant surprise.
Absolutely.
The way OJ was performing on the shooting.
I'm just gonna say it. You called him OJ.
Sorry. sorry. No, he's not the juice. OG. Yeah.
So what'd you think of Fred today? What'd you think of Fred today?
He needs some rest. I think maybe the 2 straight back-to-back 39 games, not back-to-back, but consecutive games of 39, maybe it took a toll on him.
Especially the way he's been playing. Like, he's been playing like Kyle Lowry, pinballing into the middle. He's not built for that. That's crazy. I mean, you gotta admire the grit to get into the paint that much because the team really needed it. But still, like, I mean,
I think with Fred and Kem, you have to play them to durability. Like, if if they're going all the way out X amount of games, they have to get a rest because they are coming off of an injury season the previous year. So I don't think they're 100%, to be honest.
Right.
And us thinking that, okay, we're going to get the same performance like last year is not the best ideology. To be honest,
I really think you're missing a lot with Otto and Precious. Like today, like yesterday, I made this case that this team, seems to be designed to tank, and then I just thought about it. Like, I'm like, man, I'm thinking about Moneyball. You watch Moneyball, the baseball movie?
I think that's a long time ago. I can't. It's been a
It's with Brad
I can't
Pitt.
remember it.
It's an incredible movie, and it's based on a book. Basically about how the Oakland A's basically gamed the system, and they hunted for wins as opposed to players. They weren't trying to buy players; they're trying to buy wins. And I thought about it. And I'm like, man, like, is it a coincidence to me that Otto Porter last year, Gary Payton II, 2 players that I think just elevate winning so much when they're on the court in terms of their impact and two-way impact. They're just very perfect role players, like perfect role players. I'm not saying they're Dennis Rodman, but in that ilk, like sometimes you look at the score, you look at the box score and be like 2 points, 17 rebounds, 3 assists. Like, that's Dennis Rodman. But like, man, the impact.
You just hit the key word there. Perfect role players.
Yeah.
That's the reason why we're having a slide right now, because we're having injuries, and we have injuries every year. But normally when we have injuries, the next man up would be productive. We're having challenges where our next men up aren't as productive as much as we're expecting.
I feel like your next man up today was Malachi and Juancho, and like, I think those guys were fine. I think I don't even think it's your next man up. I think it's your two of your key guys, Scotty and Fred, who struggled the most today.
Yes, but when you consider the other games there, we weren't getting that much production. Like, I was surprised on yesterday's game, the bench actually produced more. We weren't getting that out of them. So if we could get more from the bench, more from our role players, I think that will be good. If we get some rest for Fred and Scotty, because
I agree with that.
Fred is from last year, but Scotty, okay, that's a big gamble. Why are we trying to take a risk with Scotty? And he has such a long career. We don't want his career to be plagued with injuries.
No, I get that for sure. And I mean, like, I talked to someone in the know because I was really worried about it too. And I was like, can you give me because I'm a big Scotty fan, as you know, and I'm like, can you just please settle my heart here and just tell me there's no chance that what he's playing through, that he could get like a more permanent injury? And they told me no. and this is someone that I very, very, very much trust who would know
Right.
it. So I don't think that there's a like I can never say that because that's probably what the Warriors said before KD went out.
Yeah.
That there's no reason for that. I get it. Compensation
But
injuries are real, but
take your biggest example, Isaiah Thomas, right? I mean, that guy who played on a bad ankle got worse.
was it his
for the
ankle or was
Celtics.
it his back?
I think it was his ankles. I think it was. It could be his back. It could be his
I
back.
don't think it was his ankles.
Yeah.
Someone let us know in the comments. Isaiah Thomas, Boston, was it his ankle or his back? I believe it was his back. But anyways, go on.
Yeah.
And let's just
but they did play him when he wasn't in the best of health, and I heard the condition got worse.
It's like they say they played him. Some people say he insisted on playing because he was, in a contract year.
Combination of the both, which I think is going on with Scotty.
So,
I think he's also saying, "Let me play."
Yeah. So Soldier T. Everyone's saying hip. So I believe that's correct. That's why I was saying back. I'm like, was it back?
Yeah.
Hip. So it was hip. Anyways, man, thanks a lot for coming on. Really appreciate it. Appreciate the comments and everything. Cheers, man. See you. Next up, we got Kyle. Kyle, how are you?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Thanks very much. Just wanted to apologize in advance. My voice, I have the flu. But
I went through it yesterday. I had nasal drip on a live stream. I had to go and clip it out after.
Yeah. Anyways, I just wanted to chime in and be a bit of a contrarian to the rest of the chat. So I'm actually not really eager to jump ship at all on this team. I think there's a lot of politics at work that we aren't privy to. There's definitely a lot of stuff as to why people are getting the minutes they get and stuff like that, and why the plays are drawn up how they are. But I feel like our team hasn't been healthy enough for us to even understand what our floor is. And if we don't know where the floor is, how do we know where we should be improving, right? So
so here's the thing. I don't want to cut you off, but like I get where you're going with this, and believe me, I'm with you. I totally believe that this team is a top 5 team in the East if they're healthy, right? And I do believe that if given a chance to play the season out again and health is more on your side, and I don't mean that nobody misses games. I just mean the combination of guys who are missing games. Like there are certain matchups of guys that you can live without, and there are certain matchups of guys you can't live without. Like if Boucher and Fred miss a game, you'll be fine, right? Because there's replacement talent behind them that can do something similar to what they do. Like you can put Malachi in place for Fred, and you can get like 60% of what he's giving you, and then you can plug the shot in somewhere else, and you can still make it work, right? You won't be as good, but you can make it work. But then there's like there's a critical mass. Like there's a point that you get to where like, do you remember the Titanic?
Yep.
This is a weird example. Okay. You remember how they designed it and they said it can stay afloat with like 3 compartments, but then if the 4th one goes, there's nothing stopping it from going under. It's kind of like that, right? So there's certain guys that you can be without. There's certain guys who can play kind of hurt. But when you put the right combination or the wrong combination, in this case of injuries together, you just can't stay afloat. Like without OG tonight, it was a blowout, guaranteed. He made such a huge difference for this team. So what I'll say is this, like to just completely respond to your point here. And you can let me know if this wasn't the point you were going to make, but if your upside is 5th, then specifically you are designed to play the 4th team and maybe be competitive and eke out a win and get to the 2nd round. And that would be considered a winning season, in my opinion. And then you probably get bounced in the 2nd round. Would you agree with that outcome?
Well, I think the premise behind it is a guess, right? It like fifth is arbitrary. We're guessing based on where we were last year when we've added that 5th could be what we should be achieving. And again, where we were last year also had like injuries. Every team gets injured, of course. But like when we lose a player, like when we lose like Pascal for a month, that's like 40% of our salary cap that we're losing for a month, right? You could look at like Jokic last year, right? He's like a phenomenal player, but like no one can steer that ship away from the iceberg, using your analogy, right? It's just like
they made the playoffs and they were relatively competitive. They were relatively competitive in the playoffs because they were despite missing Jamal Murray, who is when healthy, when we last saw him in the bubble, and he's slowly working himself to it now. They were missing Jamal Murray, who is at last healthy top 25 player, and they were missing Michael Porter Jr., who at last healthy was a top 45 player. Those are 2 huge, huge parts, and you have no idea what progress those guys would have made. The Nuggets stayed afloat. Why? Because the critical mass there is Jokic. He's the engine that makes it go. So they can plug in Bones Highland. They can plug in other guys to just fill in gaps, right? You can have Aaron Gordon there and you can be competitive. You can't win a championship without Jamal Murray, I'll tell you that, but you can be competitive. My point is, what I'm saying is that this team, in my opinion, if everything goes right, they're second round out. That's my opinion, and obviously you're free to disagree with it, and everyone else is free to disagree with it. But I think that's best case scenario. Best case scenario, you make it to the second round. I think there are 4 teams. We've counted out in like the previous live shows. You can go watch it, where I asked every guest that came on, or every guest that came on towards the end, could we beat Boston in a 7-game series? Could we beat Milwaukee? Could we beat Cleveland? Could we beat Brooklyn? Could we beat Atlanta? Could we beat so and so? And mostly the consensus was there's like 4 teams in this conference that you pretty much can't beat. And I will tell you that the odds of running into one of those teams in the first or second round are pretty high, especially if you're a lower seed. The only way this season worked for the Raptors is they overachieve in the regular season, bounce a team that was 7th or 8th, like, I don't know, Charlotte, Washington, like not Charlotte, but Washington or New York or Chicago or some team that surges up late. Yeah, then you can get to the second round and then you play the odds out from there. But if you've ever bet on like a, like 3-leg parlay, it is far easier to bank on something going extremely right for you. Like, let's say you get to the second round and Jason Tatum has a shoulder injury like he had last year. Well, now suddenly you're super healthy and they're a little bit injured, and now maybe you stand a chance. That's why you go to the playoffs. Anything can happen, right? But when you're starting from 7th or 8th, which is what's going to happen if you continue to lose games right now, right? I mean, we are comfortably outside the playoff picture right now.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like historically, low seeds don't win championships, and that's
I mean, the Knicks were the 8th seed in a shortened season. I could argue they probably shouldn't have been, and had the season played out longer, they wouldn't have been. But they were the last team that I think was really competitive as an 8th seed that went to the finals. However, I will say that I don't think the Raptors are that team. I don't think there's a chance in hell this team could be competitive with Boston. And you say that, like missing a lot of key players. Boston's been in and out with Al Horford, Danilo Gallinari, Robert Williams, man, we're talking about Precious Achiuwa and Otto Porter. Robert Williams is hella impactful, one of the best shot blockers in the NBA. So I think there are a lot of teams out there that haven't even come close to hitting their stride. I think that the Raptors have had a very unfair advantage coming into this season, which is that they played together all summer at the Rico Hines runs. There was a very connected team in the offseason. They brought back a record number of players. I can't remember the last time a Raptors team brought back 13 players. If you're not gelling at this point, I don't see the hope. So me personally, I give this 2 more games, and then I'm taking every call and I'm making decisions. That's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I'm looking to improve the team as well at the trade deadline, but I don't think I'm in the selling department yet. Thanks for your opinion.
So you would be buying?
I would be trying to improve the team still, yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Thanks as always for the content.
Of course. There are a lot of people out there who feel that way. And to them, I say, do the math. Just do the math. It's actually not that hard. If you are banking on improbable outcomes, you do crap out sometimes. Okay, I'm gonna put a link in the comments one more time. We have time for 2 more callers. First one is Adnan. Adnan, how are you? Hello? Adnan? Check your audio, man. It is possible that Adnan has left us. Okay. Guys, hit the link if you want to talk. There's time for one more chat. We're gonna wrap this up really soon. Anyway, in closing, 2 games ago, I did say that there would be a 3-game countdown for me, at least, if they lose the next 3. And Alvin Williams, oddly enough, on Will Lou's show today sort of echoed it. He said, if they lose the next 2, there's going to be like some serious noise. I don't know why that number felt like, when I was doing the math, that number just felt right. That if you move that far under 500, even if you were to calculate the odds of getting back over 500, how much has to go right for you and wrong for your opponents in that situation? Like, you don't know if the teams above you just keep winning. And, we don't know if this year we have an 8 seed with 46 wins or 42 wins. We don't know that. We really don't know that. This is a very weird season. There are a lot of teams that are, outpacing expectations, and then there are a lot of teams that are underachieving. And one thing I will tell you, there are quite a few teams that probably at least per my estimation, were not expecting to be super competitive this year. That suddenly looked like they might be a lot more competitive than they thought. Teams like the Utah Jazz. Alvarez, I will get to you in 1 second. And I think that opens a very unique opportunity for a team that was expecting to be competitive, but maybe wasn't that competitive, which is us. And I think those teams usually make really good trading partners. So the Utah Jazz have a boatload of draft picks. And if they want to support this current core that they have, I don't know if they do, if they want to mess it up, but I think they could certainly use certain pieces that we have. Mike Conley, the health issues there. I don't know. Obviously, Pascal Siakam would be a very big, difference from how they usually play. But there are teams. Sacramento. I mean, if you watched our trade show, Leo was so desperate to trade for OG Anunoby, who's going to give us Keegan Murray, 2 future firsts, plus Harrison Barnes, like a crazy amount, right? So teams that are in this, like, oh my God, my fan base is so excited about us being 8th, 9th, 10th. We just want to push it to the playoffs. Don't be one of those teams, because you're just going to be first round fodder for the Boston Celtics. And I believe in Masai's attitude on this. Play in for what? I don't want to be a play-in team, guys. I understand that it'd be really exciting to place the Boston Celtics, but if you want to see your team get swept, don't accuse me of not having faith, guys. I'm trying to be realistic. Yes, there's a chance that, yes, these guys rally together and they pull out, a competitive series against Boston, and that would be so exciting. But again, I don't like batting on 1 percentile outcomes. And to me, it's like 8th seed. Well, the next round, now you have to face the higher seed again. And it's just like you build such a, if you ever wonder why the regular season matters, this is why. Okay, Alvarez, what up, man? What's up?
Yo, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I don't know if you remember, I came on one time before this. And
yes.
I was like, I don't even think we're gonna make the playoffs. And you were looking at me, and I was like, dude, trust me. Like, it doesn't look like we're getting. and again, I don't want to get there, and just that's why I was like, I don't think so. And now it's even more like it, that we take a deep pour and we don't even go there right now. If we lose like 2-3 more games, you know what I mean?
I'm honestly, I'm with one more game. Like, I think one more game, and honestly, like the Raptors are already fielding calls, right? I mean, at this point, every team fields calls, FYI, just for anyone who thinks that doesn't happen. That happens all the time. December 15th was a really busy day, right? Where people were fielding calls constantly. But I think the chatter is going to get louder.
Yeah.
Teams are hearing it, right? Chemistry issues, coach being tuned out, Scotty Barnes upset, this person upset, that person's upset, this guy might be on the block, Gary Trent's not part of the future plans. There's a lot of smoke here, right? I'm not trying to evoke any drama. I'm just telling you that the league, these updates that Woj, Shams, these guys put out, all GMs, they get them, they read them. And, if they figure out that there's a bit of a fire sale in Toronto, as I mentioned in a previous pod, I would like to get that sale underway before it gets to desperation time. Because the truth is that
you'll be selling less.
Yeah, it's a very strange dynamic, because you can't sit them. You can't sit these guys. You can't sit Gary, and you can't sit Fred.
No,
you absolutely cannot sit them, because they're in a contract year, and they will not sit, or they'll pout, or they will completely destroy your locker room, or they will be very upset, or you're screwing them over, or you have to then agree almost like beforehand that we're going to pay you for sitting. Like, you sit, we'll give you what you want, because if you get into a situation where you're down like 12, 15 games under 500, like, I don't know how far this can go, guys. Momentum looks bad. Pardon?
Everybody else is winning. The gap is getting further and further away. How much are you gonna have to build up? You're gonna have to win like 10 plus after you lose 2 more. You know what I mean? To even get into that point where you're playing in and all that.
Right. And there are some, it's not like things have gone all bad for the Raptors. In fairness, Scotty Barnes
30 straight. Who knows?
Scotty Barnes has played the vast majority of his games so far. He's played more games this season to this point than I believe he had played last season to this point. Pascal Siakam has been relatively healthy. You've had more Siakam so far than you did last year. Okay. Fred VanVleet, okay, his play has been pretty bad for the most part. OG Anunoby has played balls out. Like, he's been amazing, and he's also been relatively more healthy than you were expecting, right? So like I reject this narrative that we have just been completely bombarded by injuries. I mean, obviously, yes, Precious and Otto, yes, those injuries really matter. But you didn't have Otto last year, and last year Precious was one of the worst players in the league.
There's one point like specifically to be made. Like I look at these other teams, like they lose a player or two, they still win. You know, we need every single person to win at this point. Like it's not like you can lose one of our guys and still come out with a win. We used to be able to do that, but like now it doesn't seem like that. Now if you miss OG, it's like I don't think that would work. I agree. OG should not be traded. I think you keep OG. I think you keep Scotty. Everybody else kind of is like, all right, fine. Let's see what we can get. Young guys, I would keep again. Yeah. But if you need to put one in to get a massive like something good, if not, look at it another year. But you don't trade OG. OG's been so good. And Scotty, you don't trade those
Okay.
two. What do you think?
I have like 5 players on this team that I would really prefer
trade?
not to move. I would prefer not to move Christian
young guys,
Koloko.
right?
Yeah, it's mainly all the young ones. But to be honest, like it will never be a rebuild on this team. The assets that you would get back, unless it's purely picks, which I mean, I mean, look at the Oklahoma City Thunder. Is that not a team that is far more competitive and should probably push for an 8th seed or a 7th seed? Like they're not going to be bad enough to tank for Wembanyama. And at this point, like you have a top 5 player. What are you waiting for? You know, like you can get this young core.
Chat's out still, right? I think it's Chat that they might be waiting for. He's out for the entire season, isn't he?
Yeah, he's out for the entire year. But like, I mean, Jalen Williams, who's your other, rookie, he's played amazing. Josh Giddey's been good. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has been awesome. Lou Dort has been amazing. So you have a young core there that could seriously use some help. And I mean, they could definitely support them. Houston has reeled off some incredible wins against some very good teams. Orlando, I mean, 5 or 6 straight against some very. Pardon?
Yeah. They beat Boston as well, right?
They beat Boston twice. They beat Toronto twice. They beat Philadelphia. Sorry, they beat the Clippers. I mean, they beat Atlanta. They beat 4 teams that are honestly comfortably were projected at least to be top 6 teams in the East. So I think if I'm Orlando, I might be dangling, Mo Bamba and Jonathan Isaac as contracts, and maybe like a couple of firsts for a massive upgrade, right, on those guys. So that's the way I see it. There are a lot of teams that should be buyers. I mean, the league is stuck between 8, and I think the play-in has, we haven't seen it yet as Raptor fans because we were comfortably above the play-in line. But I think you're going to see it more and more that general managers desperate to keep their jobs, right? This is coaches desperate to keep their jobs, regimes in general, maybe organizations desperate to evoke a fire in their fan base. They will make desperation moves. They will parse out youth and picks and assets for someone that can help them win now. And the Raptors have a ton of players that can help a team win now. Otto, if you were to part him, he can help a team win now. So can Thad. So can Boucher. I honestly believe the Raptors are in such a good place because either way this plays, the Raptors win. I gotta say it. I know these losses are frustrating, guys, but
at all, and you sit on this team, you don't win. The only way you don't win is you sit on this team and keep losing.
If you sit on this team and then somehow you finish 9th or 8th, I think you've officially entered into a disaster season. Because your pick's not high enough. It's a really good draft, and you don't have a chance. However, not to repeat myself over and over, but like you can, anyways, I think you get it.
Yeah, you're good there. I hopped on to know this for sure. I don't know if you've already gone over it. Do you think we are going to make the playoffs this season?
Man, it would be really shocking if we didn't, right? I can tell you, if we do, I hope we're a top 5 seed. That's where I'll leave that. All right, Alvarez. Thanks a lot, man.
All right,
cheers. Cheers. Okay, and next up we have Raptor Eyes, and then after that we're going to do something a little bit different for the final 30 minutes. I just want you to come on, because I realize the chat is just full of trade ideas, and if you have a trade idea, why don't you share it with us? Sorry, there was somebody who Raptorized, you were waiting, and now you're gone. So I guess the lines are open. So come on and pitch your best trade for the Raptors if you want to do that, or if you just have a final thought, we can just go through that and yeah, like, I mean, it seems like that's everything that you guys seem to want to talk about is who do you want to trade. So I'll just ask you, who do you want to trade and who do you want to trade for? And, you'll get my 10-second, 30-second response to it. So we have Adnan. Adnan, what's up, man?
Yes, sorry. I wasn't able to get in last time because the audio was being a bit janky. But from what I saw, I only saw like the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter and overtime, and I have watched plenty of other games. Something that I noticed is, yes, they have a lot of bad habits, but they play a lot of hot potato, and they keep passing the ball back to either Siakam or Fred VanVleet. And then what would happen is Fred VanVleet will like dribble the ball for the very long time. When there's like 4 or 5 seconds left, he'll pass it back to Siakam. And at that point, I feel like nobody can actually make good decisions at that point.
Right.
So that's one of the things I'm noticing. And yes, I agree that Siakam is not probably a top 15 or top 20 player, or he's close to it. But I feel like the other
players... Wait, hold on. He's not a top 15, top 20 player, or he is?
He isn't.
You think he isn't?
I don't think he's top 15 or top 20. Not the
okay.
Way he's
so you're not agreeing. So you said I agree. So you're not agreeing with me because my position is that he's firmly top 15, top 20.
So there was something that was something that was said within this entire stream was the fact that you need to have a top 5 player to win. Yes.
5. Yes, I don't think he's a top 5 player. No, I don't.
So, but I still feel like we should be more competitive if the other players step up. So what ends up happening is what I've noticed is if Siakam has the ball, nobody else is moving. The only person that I've somewhat seen cut a lot is Yancho, which I'm loving, right? But the other players just stand there, and then Siakam is just iso ball, which really frustrates me. One of the plays in this game which I really liked. Unfortunately, Fred VanVleet missed an open 3, but that ball movement, it was amazing. And I just wanted them to do something similar in overtime as well, but didn't happen.
Right.
So what I'm noticing in this, because nobody shoots the ball well, nobody is even attempting to shoot at times. And I noticed that happened previously as well when we had.
So here's the thing. So here's where you lose me, right? Because like while I agree with your general point that there's a lack of ball movement, when you go to the extreme, we're saying nobody's moving, nobody shoots well. I think that's where I'm kind of on the spectrum. I have Asperger's, so I hone into everything as like literal, right? So I have like trouble following because when you said nobody shoots well, I just have visions of Malachi splashing 3 after 3 after 3. Okay, so it's like for me, it's very difficult to follow when you say that. So here's my suggestion to you, Adnan. I don't completely agree with everything you're saying, but I agree with parts. So my suggestion to you. And this is, great advice, I think, to anyone and out there who's really, really frustrated with the offense. I suggest you watch the YouTube 10-minute condensed clip and slow it down to 25%.
Oh, you're talking about this game's recap.
Yeah, this specific game. So it's like, I mean, they condense it into 10 minutes into plays. Yeah. So my suggestion to anyone who's really frustrated with the offense, if you really want to see what's going on with the offense, and, I'm not going to make a low light film for this one. So my suggestion to you is slow it down to 25%. And just watch it and tell me in the next show if your opinion of what you saw changed, because I almost guarantee it will.
And the second thing that I'm noticing is, yes, defensively, Precious Achiuwa was providing you something which I think not a lot of other Raptors can provide. Now, he's really quick on his feet and he's strong. So there's nobody else we have, perhaps maybe OG, but OG is strong, but not as quick on his feet. So losing Precious Achiuwa, I do think sort of brought our defense down, because right now, even last year, what I'm thinking, we had the same players. We still had that same problems where we had those offensive dry spells, but defensively, at least, we were still solid. This season, I feel like our defense is not as good, and our offense, like last season, isn't able to keep up.
I hate to tell you, a lot of the same issues that were in the defensive issues last year. Corner threes wide open. I mean, the paint defense has gotten a little bit worse, but I mean, you would probably expect that starting a rookie center and Pascal Siakam taking a dip, and obviously letting a lot more players into the paint because Scotty Barnes is struggling with screen navigation, and Fred VanVleet is struggling with point of attack defense. I just think that there's I don't mean to be rude. I just think that there is a simplified way to look at the game, and I think there's a more evolved way to look at the game. And my suggestion to you is to slow the game down, watch it, and see what's actually happening. Because it's one thing to say, this guy's fast, this guy's slow, but I don't think that's the full story. So that's my suggestion to you. Anyways, Adnan, thank you so much for calling in. I really appreciate it. Cheers. Okay. Next up we have Marky Mark, and then we have Raptorized. Raptorized, you were here first. Raptorized, what's up?
Hey, bro, what's going on? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. We're gonna have to make this one quick. We have about 10-12 minutes left on the show. What's up, man?
Hey, look, man, I don't even need long, to be honest with you, man. I'm just like to the point now where we got to start taking the blimp view here. Masai, I think the real reason why he got rid of DeMar way back when was because there was decision time was coming in terms of give the bag or not to give the bag. And I think that we're reaching that point with Fred.
DeMar,
yes.
DeMar already got the bag. They traded him after they gave him the bag. They didn't want to give him the bag. And to be honest, if you want my interpretation of that deal, Masai didn't want to do it.
There you go.
Like no. I mean, he didn't want to trade DeMar. Like he had he had a lot of issues with it. Like again, this is not me breaking news. Don't accuse me of anything, but I'm just saying from what I can piece together from what I've heard about it, it seems that it was a lot of other forces in the front office that were very aggressively pushing for this trade for Kawhi. Bobby Webster had a pre-existing relationship with the Spurs front office, and he was able to sort of broker it. It did fall apart. That deal entirely fell apart over the inclusion of a pick or something. It was some minor detail, and they just, they weren't able to work it out. And that's, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that is when, again, guys, consider this like an opinion. Don't consider this news because, there's a source that I heard it from that I'm like 85% sure about. I don't want to report it. This is not, I don't want to see this leading Yahoo News tomorrow. So, but the deal sort of broke down. That's when they kind of told DeMar, you're not getting traded. It's not going to happen at Summer League. And then the very next day it got finalized. So that's kind of how it was kind of stop and go. And there was a lot of people who kind of like, I don't know if we want to get rid of DeMar. And then there's some people who were like, I don't know if we want to pay this guy this much money and we want to keep him for as long as, because they had him on the contract. The Spurs didn't have to sign him back. They had him.
No, I mean, it was along the same lines. Okay, fine. He'd already got the bag or whatever. I felt like they were going through buyer's remorse and they saw the ceiling of the team and we're like, no, we've got to do something here.
Well, I mean, you saw the playoffs that year, right? I mean, they were supposed to take a step up and they took a step back. And then I think maybe, Masai's like a real like winner mindset. Like he doesn't believe in the quit. I think that's why he really likes Fred and Pascal, to be honest. Like those guys, like their aggressive bet on yourself attitude. And when DeMar went up and said, shit, if we had LeBron on our team, we would have won too, something like that. I think like it rubbed me the wrong way when he said it. And I was like, oh, this duo is done.
I feel like we're the same guy. I've been listening to you for a bit and you say all the things that I think or I've said before, because I didn't like his comments after losing to LeBron. Like he would say those type of things, like he's like one of the greatest players. And would you ever hear a Kawhi say something like that? Give it up so much to their opponent? You've got to have that dog mindset, man, and that's what Kawhi brought to the team. And I know you're saying that Masai wasn't really in on kind of moving DeMar and bringing in Kawhi.
It's an emotional thing.
Yeah, for sure. But like I've said this in the comments before. Masai's only loyalty is to winning. That's all he's loyal to. And so we're reaching that point right now with Fred and Pascal, where are we gonna really like give these guys the bag and set them up for the next few years to be the franchise leaders? I don't know. I don't think so. My bet is that I don't think so. My bet is that after the season is done, and the value can be that you can probably get a little bit more in the off season. I think that our team is going to take shape in the off season. This season will go how this season will go, but in the off season, the results of this season are going to take place. So guys, just relax. It doesn't look pretty right now, but there's a grand scheme here. All right. Well, even if we don't see it right now, even if it's not apparent right now, there's a grand scheme. Okay.
I completely agree with you. Thanks a lot, Raptorized. Thanks for calling in, man. I really appreciate it.
Right,
cheers. Okay. And next up, we have Marky Mark. Again, if anyone wants to call in with their trade ideas, I'm going to post the link there on the stream. Marky Mark, how are you?
Not bad. Robert, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. I supposedly I'm the Scotty hater, but it's all right. I'm not. So let me ask you a question, Robert.
I'm having trouble hearing you. Are you close to your microphone?
Oh, can you hear me now?
I can hear you a little bit better. It's a little bit choppy, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So let me ask you a question, Robert.
Sure.
Are you happy with Raptor team making a first round exit every year, or a second round exit every year, or a year where everybody's saying you got to get this guy named Victor Wembanyama, who's gonna change your franchise. Apparently, he's gonna add $500,000 fortune on whatever team he goes on. He's gonna change your franchise. We're gonna probably be like a Tim Duncan or Warriors kind of type team.
Right.
So, would you, as a Raptor, would you want that chance of getting somebody who's an international player? So let's just talk about international players. At a chance at a great prospect who apparently is the greatest prospect ever. Or are you happy with making the playoffs and getting a first round exit every year and missing out?
I mean, if you're trying to convince me to be on like the team tank world order, I totally am on board with that. I get that. I don't believe in this core. I don't. I obviously have been very critical of Siakam and Van Vliet as your best two players. I think if those two guys are your best two players, you're pretty much upper ceiling is second round. I don't think that there's enough on this team. I think this team, as I told you, maybe you listened to the last live, maybe you didn't, but there was like a live, last night where I said this team is really good at hedging their bets. Everyone's on pretty short-term contracts. I don't know if you realize. Otto's on a 1+1. Thad, I believe, is on a 2-year deal. Chris Boucher is on a 2 or 3 year deal. Kem has like a year or two left. Like everyone's on short-term deals. There's no like long-term money parked up, And I always think like that's always interesting when teams leave that open. And it's kind of like that guy who's been dating the girl for like 8 years, but they're still not married. That's the point, right? I'm not in. I'm one in, one out. So I think the Raptors, this overused term, evaluate. Masai's like, we're evaluating. Yep, that's what they're doing. And right now, what they're evaluating and seeing, it's not in a vacuum. It's not all about what's going on with the Raptors. It's not all about what's going on with the Raptors, but it's about what's going on with the rest of the team. It's about what's going on with the rest of the league. What are the trends? Is there a clear title favorite emerging? I think a lot of people would say that going into this season, Golden State and maybe Boston, the Nets, I don't know. There were a few teams that were kind of like up top and like, oh, those are the teams to beat. And maybe you stack yourself against that team. But now you have more data. You have 27, 28, 29 games of data where you're like, okay, this is who they are. Oh, so the best defense in the league turned into the best offense ever. Okay, that's the number one seed in the East. That's what we're up against. And they're getting healthier. Giannis is on beast mode. Oh, that's what we're going up against, right? Tyrese Maxey is taking another step. Like this Philadelphia team looks like really good. Ben Simmons is healthy again in Brooklyn, and they're vibing. They've won like 8 or 9 out of like the last 12. Okay, like this is what we're up against. Now you have more information. Or play it out on an alternate timeline. Scotty Barnes is now a 22 point per game scorer. That's another timeline. Kevin Durant is out with a season-ending injury. That's a completely different timeline. Like now we're like, oh, there's a gap. The Raptors have been buyers at the trade deadline. They have also been sellers at the trade deadline. I would prefer they be sellers this year, regardless of what happens the next game, personally. And yeah, I do think Victor Wembanyama is I think he would be a gift. He's a really good player. Like he's incredible. If you understand basketball, one of my favorite YouTubers, Jimmy High Roller, released a video about Victor Wembanyama and said, he compared him to other players who were like of that ilk. Do you know how tall Victor Wembanyama is, by the way, Marky Mark?
I keep hearing 7'3", 7'5", but I heard from his own mouth he was 7'3", so I don't know what to believe.
It's a lie. He's 7'5". He's legitimately 7'5". I've seen pictures of this guy at 17 or 18 years old standing next to someone who is legit been measured 7'4", and he was clearly taller.
Okay.
So let's just say 7'4". We'll split the difference and say 7'4". He's a 7'4" guy who can pretty much block a shot at the rim while jumping from the free throw line. Like that's what we're talking about. We are talking about generational prospect. I don't know if we're talking about LeBron generational. I have to wait to see it. But from what I've seen, against very good competition, by the way, against grown men, he's looked amazing. So yeah, but I don't think he's the only prize in this draft. I think Scoot Henderson is amazing. So I think those top 2 guys, and I'll dig more into the draft. And if the Raptors continue losing, trust me, you're going to get a lot of draft coverage here. That's a big passion of mine is draft. But I think like personally, I don't see it with this core. I don't. And I hope that Masai and Bobby kind of see the writing on the wall, that if Scotty Barnes hasn't taken that next step that you were expecting him to in year 2, for whatever reason, it doesn't really matter. He's not vibing with the offense. He's a little bit hurt, whatever, whatever. If you still believe that the guy will get there, then I think you need to just stick with him, build a younger core around him, build a style of basketball that's entertaining to watch. Cause I feel like every fan I talk to is saying like, they're pulling their eyes out after every game. Do you find this fun to watch? Is the on-court product fun for you?
No.
I agree. It's painful to watch. I almost fell asleep during today's game, and I was taking notes, and I almost fell asleep. It was embarrassing. And today was the best they played in a while, by the way. Like, I think this was the best they've played in a long time. It's just boring.
Yeah.
It's boring to go through this over and over again, and to get your hopes up, and then to watch, the wrong play, the wrong cut. It's frustrating.
I'm telling you, Robert, if there was a year to actually take, this is the year. I'm telling you, man, we're not a free agent destination, so the only way we'll get a player is through the draft. So I'm telling you, man.
To think about it this way, has a team as good as us ever been in a position to get a player as good as Wembanyama or Scoot? Never. It's never happened. And I mean, like, the assets that you would get back potentially for your core guys, like the guys that you could end up with like 18 draft picks. Like, if you just parse these guys out and you actually just you create a fire sale. But I don't know how sustainable that is, but those draft picks can always be parlayed into a star. They can always be parlayed into other players down the line. This team has never had a stable of, like, future draft picks. It's never happened. And I always bring this up with people. Do you know what happened the last time the Raptors had 2 first-round picks?
I remember Bargnani back in 2006. Yeah.
Nope. The last time the Raptors had 2 first-round picks.
Was it 95?
No, man. Really recent.
Oh, you
2 first-round picks.
Oh, first-round picks. Okay, yeah. That was Scotty Barnes.
Nope. They only had 1 first-round pick the year they picked Scotty. Does anyone know?
Huh.
Yep. In the comments, we got Jakob and Pascal. So think about that. They had the 9th overall pick and the 27th overall pick. They picked what? They picked a top 15 player all time at 27, and they picked one of the top 10 defense. They picked probably one of the top 5 defensive centers in the NBA at 9. Even with Malachi at 28, like, this is not a team that screws up draft picks ever. Like, Scotty Barnes, for all his struggles this year, is still probably he's definitely a top 3 player in that draft so far. 100%. No, you can say whatever you want. Oh, what?
I don't know, man. I can't really say that, man, because you got, what's his name, Jalen Green, Kate Cunningham, who's got better stats, and you got
Jesus Christ, Marky Mark. Cade Cunningham has been so bad. His team has been better without him. I'm not kidding. His team has been winning and way more competitive without him. He's barely played, right? He's been injured. He's been a turnover machine. He's shot terribly, and like you say, better stats. He's taken more shots. That's really, at the end of it, that's what it is. He has a few more assists, but honestly, this year, if you look at Scotty's passer rating and look at the analytics, you and I were gonna have a talk someday, because I know you messaged me on Facebook once, and I was like, man, do I have like 10 minutes to just like direct this guy to some sites that might change his mind on a couple of these issues? Because, like, when you look at raw stats for a guy who has the ball all the time, like Jalen Green, let me tell you something about Jalen Green. One of the worst defenders in the NBA right now. Cannot guard his shadow. So it's like, you can't win with guys like that. I'm telling you, you can't. Like, long term, you're trying to win championships. You're talking about building around Victor Wembanyama. What makes Victor Wembanyama so special? He's a 2-way prospect. Yeah. You get 1-way players. I don't want him. I don't want Davion Mitchell on my team because he only plays defense. He sucks on offense. He's like a 10th percentile offensive player. Same thing with Cade. Cade is worse. Jalen Green is definitely worse. I think Jalen Green is better than Cade, personally. I do. If I was the Pistons at that time, maybe it would be difficult to sell myself on passing on Cade because he's so smooth and he talks so smooth. Look at this. Green is a 0 percentile defender. I believe he's a 1st or 2nd percentile defender. Just to put that into context, I think Scotty Barnes is 68th. Like, it's a glaring difference, and you can't just look at raw numbers and say, well, this guy putting up 22 points, so he's better. That's old school thinking. That's really old school. That's like 92, 99, But ever since like 2008, 2009 broke down, we're looking at shot quality. We're looking at, like, breaking things down per 75 possessions, per shot. You got to look at how efficient you are, right? Because guys like, Jerry Stackhouse, they put up like 30 points per game, but nobody cared how bad they were shooting. Just they saw the 30 points per game. And they're like, that guy's a star. But there was a very big difference between 30 points per game on 41% and 30 points per game on 46%. You know, that's the difference between Jerry Stackhouse and Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
You know,
Robert, one thing I want to say is I'm not on the train of trading Fred. I think he's good for the tank. I think we should keep him till the season.
You think he's good for the tank? This is the problem. You got to look at the numbers. I'm telling you, on a fully healthy team, Fred VanVleet actually helps you win more than he helps you lose. Malachi will help you lose. If you want to lose, Delano and Malachi will help you lose a lot.
Yeah. I don't know, brother. I think Fred is good for the tank, brother, man. You should keep him till the end of the season. And I'm telling you, Robert, if we do get a lottery pick top 5, you can say goodbye to Pascal and Fred, because there's no way we're going to get a top 5 player and have these guys, you know, eat up their minutes. No way. You can say goodbye.
Well, you know, you had Fred and Pascal on the team the last time you got a top 5 pick, and that was Scotty Barnes. So I'm just saying, creative tanks exist. Anyways, Mark, thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate it. Cheers. We got play-in for what? Masai, is that you?
No. Can you hear me?
Man, too bad. What's up? I can hear you, yeah.
This is not a trade idea, so I don't know if you want to do this, but I do have a final thought that you can dispute heavily if you want. In 1979, Magic Johnson was drafted to the LA Lakers, which was already a contender at the time. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, a lot of injuries allowed them to get a pretty high pick, similar to ours, actually. And Magic Johnson actually did it, even if people think he had great early seasons, he didn't actually arise to the star that he was until the second half of the 80s, at least in terms of his peak seasons and his greatest seasons. And part of this you could actually attribute was the fact that he was in such a winning situation constantly. So my question is it actually great for Scott, even though I do believe that he's a hard worker and he's a winning player, is it good for Scotty to be in a losing situation, which will happen for several years if we do decide to sell all these assets? And not to compare Siakam to Kareem, obviously they're worlds apart, but the simple fact is that Siakam does set a precedent in the locker room as probably the hardest worker in the whole team. It would be like, and everybody says so. So that's like, I think even if we're not going to win a championship, just being in a place of where you're just at least trying to win every single year in, year out, that's going to lead Scotty to be maybe one of the greatest players of all time. Like, at least if we were going to give him a chance to enter that, maybe there's an alternative timeline for him to do that too. But the way I always envision Scotty is that, especially the type of player he is, who literally mirrors Magic Johnson almost every single way, and also plays the same role that Magic Johnson and the Lakers as Scotty did first. Obviously, many differences.
How many 80s Lakers games have you watched? I'm just curious.
In terms from what you can see on YouTube, essentially. So I've probably watched about 25 at most. I enjoy the 80s basketball a lot. It's clearly very different. But Magic Johnson, obviously, is still a different player from Scotty. But I mean, from a versatility point of view, Magic Johnson was. I mean, I would agree with that. The OG is probably the hardest worker, but at least Siakam, we know he's definitely a culture setter.
Personally, I think Scotty's the hardest worker. That's just my opinion. That's something that I've just always felt about him. To go from where he was in high school to now, that's just 3 years. 3 years. Like, some of the shit that he's doing right now, it's like inconceivable that he could have done it in high school. I'm telling you, coming out of Florida State, there's a reason why this guy was ranked as like 6th or 7th in the draft and considered a bit of a project by a lot of people, is because he was supposed to become a contributor after like 1 or 2 years, right? He's supposed to be a fairly positive defender who maybe after 3 years could learn how to score. Well, I mean, he learned how to score pretty much right away. He came out like 22, 23 points in his second game. So what I'm saying is that to grow as fast as he has, you know, I mean, consider it. He's 21 years old right now, right? Where was Pascal Siakam at 21? Where were Fred VanVleet at 21? They were still in college.
Yeah, well,
and where were they when they were 23? They were in the G League.
Well, Siakam's like a very different context, though. He started much later, for sure. And he had an historic rise. It's unprecedented, especially considering he was a 27th
It's
pick.
not historic. See, that's the thing I'm going to say to you. Like, there was a 3-year lull in the middle, right? Siakam championship year, then Siakam the next year. That year to the next year to the next year, it was like, I understand that there was growth, skills development and stuff, but like in terms of impact, he flatlined for 3 whole years in his peak, right? We can consider 25 to 30 a peak for a player of his skill set. I mean, some people will say 26 to 32. Players have different peaks. There are certain players who peak from 21 to 25.
Siakam's definitely peaking right now for sure. Yeah, 100%.
He is. In my opinion, he is, right? He could definitely get better as a shooter, but then he'll slow down as an athlete, and then you'll see like quickness go for strength and etc. But there are peaks with players, guys. Jordan had a peak, sometime probably, what would you consider Jordan's peak? Like 93 to 90, 96? Unfortunately, the years he played baseball.
I mean, if you combine athletic skills and still his jump shot, he would probably
88.
be like 92. Yeah, 88 to 92 for sure. Because
so I mean, that's ultimately my point, right? Jordan wasn't a freshman coming out, so like pretty much from the ages of 21 to 26 is typically when you hit like an athletic prime, and then maybe like from 24 to 30 is kind of when you hit prime, and then depending on how your skill set transfers to older age, you'll probably have like a slow decline, or you'll fall off a cliff like Russell Westbrook, right?
Yeah.
So my point is, to say that he's such a hard worker, he's the hardest worker on the Raptors. Well, how does the hardest worker on the Raptors from the age of 24 to 27 almost not improve?
Well,
kind of difficult to justify that, right? So what I'm saying is cool down. Like we can all cool down on the hardest worker stuff, because I mean, while I understand why you're saying it for sure, I think there are a lot of hard workers on this team. Precious Achiuwa, this offseason was credited as being the hardest working Raptor per a lot of people. They were like, this guy went balls out this summer. Now, because we're not seeing the fruits, in the shooting, we're like, oh, well, he's a bust or he sucks. Why do we trade for this guy? We should have traded for some other guy. I believe it. I buy it. I've heard some stories like Christian Coloco. Look at Christian Coloco. 30, what was he? 33%, 37% free throw shooter. Couldn't shoot a ball in college, a freshman season.
For sure.
Sophomore season, he was in the 50s. And by his third season, his junior season, he was up to 70%. Do you know how much work that takes to go from a guy who's never played basketball 1 year? So how do we know Christian Coloco is not the hardest worker? That's my point. I understand that Siakam tweets about it and he puts it on his IG and people, he talks about it a lot.
Anyways,
for sure.
Let's get rid of that part of the argument. It doesn't matter. It was just kind of like a sub point.
So I don't necessarily agree with the parallel that you're drawing between Siakam and Kareem. I don't necessarily think look, there are split thoughts on this. Like there are a lot of people who've debated this. Is it good for young players to be on a losing team where they can be creative and take risks or whatever? Or is it better to be on a really like good team, And I mean, like two players who went through completely opposite situations. Kawhi Leonard in San Antonio, always on a winning team. Kevin Durant on a lot of losing teams early on, right? But I think that Scotty, given the kind of character that he is and the Raptors, the kind of organization they were, I think they would go more to the OKC side than the Detroit with Cade Cunningham losing year after year side, or and I mean, like, look at Zion. Like, I mean, did they stack a contender around him right away? No. Like, I mean, there are a lot of players. Jordan is a perfect example. You brought up Jordan, right? Jordan's Bulls were awful. Couldn't win. The first few years. LeBron went into a situation in Cleveland where they didn't make the playoffs, right?
Fair enough, yeah. But my argument would be that, I mean, the people around Scotty would definitely know for sure way more than I do as like a random speculator for 100%. But my guess would be is that the best situation for Scotty would be a winning team, because I mean, reality is Scotty will become one of the greatest players by being a winning player, as all the things you talk about in this channel is being all about team, all about impact, and like literally learning the NBA top to down versus like, Kevin Durant was born with a scoring gift that he was able to turn into he was able to become a winner at the NBA level. But
I mean, in all honesty, Scotty was born with a passing gift, right? I mean, like today we saw Joel Embiid pass the ball into the third row. Like Kawhi Leonard, if you go back and study tape on him in 2019, great scorer, can't pass, miss passes all the time, right?
Yeah, 100%.
It's a secondary thing for him. So every player has their advantage. Every player has their, ace in the hole, or the skill that, carries them into the NBA. And then they try to develop all the other skills. So, I just think that to have a first option, like to have a guy like Scotty Barnes and to just use him as a hustle big or initiator, connector in your offense, I think he could be a really good player that way. I think he could have a 12, 13-year career. But if the scoring and the shooting part comes in, if he becomes like a 25-point per game scorer, then I see your vision for maybe he's one of the greatest players of all time, or maybe he's one of the best players in the league. That I get, right? Mm-hmm. But what I'm saying is, if he becomes that player next year, you're not a losing team anymore. So what the hell is the point? See my point? Like if you have OG, you have Christian Coloco, you have some vets, and you have all these assets. You're not giving away Pascal Siakam for nothing. You're obviously getting a lot back. Ideally, you get younger players back. Maybe younger players that, like let's explore this. I don't think they're going to trade Siakam. I don't. I think Fred VanVleet and Gary Trent Jr., I think that's another story. They might. So let's say you trade all three. Let's say you have a fire sale. Let's say Masai loses his mind and he trades all three. Okay. Sorry, I'm having like a bit of a wheeze reaction. Give me 1 second, guy. I'm just gonna come right back. I removed the wrong person. I'm sorry. I removed you. I was supposed to remove myself. My bad.
No worries.
So anyways, so what I'm saying is whatever you're going to get back for these guys, whatever you get back for them, it's going to help you win. And let's just say midseason, you trade all three guys and you just get younger guys. Like let's say you go for 22, 23-year-olds on rookie deals who are about to get extended or whatever. And you get like a Shaden Sharp or something like that. You get something like that back. I think you could probably still be competitive. Maybe then you could chase 10th place in the play-in, right? Or you could just full out tank and rest Scotty for the year and, do skills development with him and just tell him, listen, we don't want you to have ankle injuries for the rest of your life, right? We don't want you to be chronically injured. We don't want you to play through a bum knee. So we're just going to sit you out. And then you fully initiate the tank, right? So yeah. I think it's more difficult to do this later in the season. Although the Raptors last time they did this, like when they tanked the Tampa tank that Masai calls the Tampa tank.
It was in March. It was in March of that year. So
yeah, I think I believe it was their January that was completely disastrous, right? Was it December or January that was completely ravaged by COVID?
January, it was awful. It was awful.
They started well though, right? And then they still ended up with the 7th worst record. So that was some aggressive tanking. I'm pretty sure if we looked at that season and this season, I would say we're probably worse this season than we were that season so far. So if we tanked to 7th place that season, maybe we take, and of course the odds are flatlined.
Yeah.
So I think almost every single year, the team that's like 7th ends up moving into the top 4. So, I mean, if you just finish somewhere in the top 7, I think you give yourself a chance.
I mean, the Pels were the 9th, right? And then they ended up with the first, they got Zion. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure they were like 8 to 9 or something like that.
I think that was, I know that happened for the Chicago Bulls. I think the Bulls moved up majorly to get Derrick Rose, evoked the conspiracy theories of guy goes to hometown team. But yeah, anyways, playing for what? Thank you so much. Do you have any final thoughts on the game specifically?
Well, Fred is just lowering his relative true shooting every single night, so it's just
well, he did it some favors the last 2 games, so I figured like this just bounces.
He's been playing better for sure, at least. But,
yeah. All right, playing for what? Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us. We're right at the 2-hour mark, which is just slightly longer than I thought it would be. I do have some exciting, somewhat, interesting news. I just got Twitter. Some people have been bugging me for a really long time to get Twitter. So I'm just going to write it into the comments and you can give it a follow if you would like to, I don't know, get random updates from me about stuff and you want to be more plugged in. So I'm just going to put that in the comments there and I'm going to put it on the screen as well. I'm wondering if I should address this. No, I probably shouldn't address this. So I won't. But I will say that someone flagged some crap that someone there's this very popular executive for executive producer for The Score who was like, I'll give up. Like who's Pinsar basketball? And then a whole bunch of people chimed in and I was very disappointed to see what certain people said. It's very weird to have people gossiping about you and saying shit about you on Twitter, but I think it comes with the breaks. And so, we deal with it. But now I have a Twitter presence and call it a Twitter presence with my 2-3 followers. So hopefully that following grows. And someone said, like you should get TikTok. I'm like, nah, bro, too far. No TikTok for Rob. I'm not going to be doing that. I'm going to just look at some of these comments here. Udoka or Griffin instead of Nurse, too soon for that. And no to Udoka. I like him, but I don't think this organization would touch him. Robert, can we trade Nick and Fred for a 1st-round pick? Serious question. Only if that 1st-round pick is attached to number 1 or number 2. If you're asking serious question, can you trade those guys for a pick? You can trade Fred for a 1st-round pick if you're willing to take competing salary back. I don't think you can trade. I believe there was a trade where the Doc Rivers was traded for something. So I might be wrong. I think maybe you could trade Fred VanVleet and Nick Nurse for Scoot Henderson. But I got to tell you, as the other team on the other end of that, they're not doing that trade. Okay. Is a 4 to 5 1st-round picks asset? You know what? I completely agree. Embrace the tank. Yeah, I mean, next game we're gonna see it, right? We're gonna see if the wheels fall off, it's gonna happen next game, and I certainly hope. You know, I feel for these guys. Losing is tough in the NBA, and I know all these guys are competitive and they want to win. So it really sucks. Obviously, if you know they lose to the Knicks, they fall that far under 500. Otto and Precious definitely can't come back soon enough. But yeah, I mean, I think long term as Raptor fans, there's really no bad outcome to the season other than the middle road. And I just really hope that the Raptors don't go that way. Don't go that way either deliberately or by accident. I know that they wouldn't do it deliberately, but if they do it by accident, I think it would be a disaster. So I think you know, we'll see you next game. We'll see you on Wednesday. Cheers, guys. Good night. Have a great one. Thanks for sticking it out till midnight. Okay, cheers, guys. Have a good night. And make sure to like and subscribe and all that good stuff. And when this goes live, when 12 seconds, just make sure to hit a comment in the actual comment section. It really does help the algorithm a lot. And if you're not subscribed for whatever reason, please do subscribe. It really does help the algorithm a lot as well. Cheers, guys. Bye.